Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening. Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about higher power? Stick around and find out. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because I'm but then I don't know the words to the song. But it's the one song that I could remember from the movie Watchmen that this movie makes me think about a little bit. It's the sound of silence. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with my uncut review of Higher Higher Power. When the universe decides what it wants, says the description on IMDb, it's pointless to resist. With his family's life at stake, Joseph Stedman finds himself the unwilling test subject of a maniacal scientist in a battle that could save the world or destroy it. All right, I saw this trailer as I was browsing Redbox a couple weeks ago, and I was like, dude, what is this? This could totally be my kind of movie. So I've really been anticipating checking this one out. It's, in terms of the story, the script, the pacing, and the tone, it's a sci-fi superhuman drama is the way I would describe it. So I think they're going for something similar to Chronicle, maybe. At least that's what it looked like in the previews, where it's not about like a superhero. It's about a person that has superpowers. But I do think that it was definitely inspired by comic books, or maybe they felt like they were being inspired by comic books. There was a lot of choices, stylistic choices, that were just very pronounced that made me think, are they doing this because, you know, they're trying to give it a comic book vibe? It reminded me a little bit of the stylistic choices made in Ang Lee's Hulk movie, where it was very stylized, playing with comic book paneling and stuff, but, you know, giving them motion comic book paneling, you know. And it was a way that I was like, I'm glad that you're wanting to, like, draw from comic books as a source material, but I'd rather you didn't do that as a gimmick, you know. So anyway, likewise in this movie, I felt like some stylistic choices really got in the way of my enjoyment, unfortunately. The story basically involves this crazy scientist that believes that experimenting on Joe Stedman will to grant and then progressively unlock superpowers for him is the solution to this horrible future event that he believes is coming. But he puts Joe's family in danger in order to get what he wants from him throughout the movie. So it's a serious story throughout, following this broken and dysfunctional man under like horribly stressful circumstances. And as you would guess from the trailer, it eventually opens up into a large-scale superhuman sci-fi story as Joe progressively comes into these massive amounts of power by the end. So looking at that, I mean, that's a recipe to be my movie of the year. I mean, I really enjoyed a movie like, say, Upgrade, which was another story that was not about superheroes, but was about a man gaining superpowers. But the script here in Higher Power, and the editing, the storytelling style, and the direction, all of those things I felt were very stylized, and that can be good for me, especially in lower budget movies where that attention to style can help offset the low production values of a lower budget movie. But style is given attention in this movie in ways that felt like they were sacrificing story and my potential investment in the drama. Dramatic moments and meaningful character interactions aren't given, I don't think, the time or to breathe, or they're not fleshed out in the script more. So sometimes motivations of character choices just didn't make any sense to me. There was also a little bit of story logic that I was just like, I get it. I'm walking into a movie where I'm going to see this dude get all these crazy, cosmic powers, So, but it needs to like have an internal logic to it, and I felt like that was kind of missing in a few spots. Time is also given to visual elements that serve, I think, style over story. Like there's a Newton's Cradle, which if you don't know what that is, it's that desktop steel ball thing where it's got a bunch of steel balls hanging. You drop one on one side and it makes the other one on the other side, go out, and they go whack, 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 back and forth. So they were using like this motif of Newton's Cradle, I think, to kind of have some kind of cause and effect theme that they were going for, but they kept cutting away to it, and I was like, man, when you're editing a movie, these are ultimately precious seconds. I'm not even a filmmaker, and I know that these are precious seconds. Everything that they show you is a very deliberate choice, and I'm like, why are they spending time, even as little as they do, on this? And that's just one example. I felt like there was a lot of little peripheral things like that were maybe going for some kind of a vague representation of a theme, but they to me, they were just kind of like, it was filling, it didn't pull me into the story or the characters more. So I think it could have been cut out and replaced with maybe just a few more seconds of breathing time during a conversation, between two characters. The script also repeatedly teases some philosophical and religious issues that it never really goes anywhere with. Transfiguration, a word that's repeated. Deliver us is a phrase that's used. The idea of praying but not getting any answers. Higher power is the name of the movie, and that's a phrase that's also used a number of times in the story itself. Self-sacrifice. These are all words and phrases that are heavily tied to biblical theological issues and questions, and that are in this movie as well. But the film doesn't seem to make much of a comment on them in the end. I kept waiting. I was like, okay, so you've set this up, this theme. Where are you going to go with it? What statement are you going to make on it in the end? Because it was not just like stuff that, like, me as someone who is interested in those kinds of topics of themes, especially as they get into the realms of philosophy and religion and morality and stuff like that. No, these were blatant things that were they were set up in the movie, and I felt like they didn't go anywhere with them. Maybe he didn't intend to. Maybe he was just putting these things out there. I don't know, but I certainly wanted him to say something, about, like, what do we do with that? Like, with the idea that we pray and we don't feel like we're getting answers, and where is God in all of this? Where is God when things are going wrong? So anyway, I felt like those teases that the movie spent time on felt wasted. I kind of would have preferred they would just leave those teases out, not even bother presenting these kind of philosophical ideas at all. Spend more time on character development. The movie also felt melodramatic to me at times, with the villain repeatedly kind of conducting this imaginary orchestra as he sat at his computer carrying out plans. It was just kind of like, what is that little motif about? Okay, so he feels like he's the master of this grand plan that he's orchestrating, but we don't get any more sense of like who he is as a character, and so he just kind of feels like this weird kind of two-dimensional villainy kind of thing. The premise of this movie really lends itself to this wonderful blend of sci-fi and drama that I would really appreciate and have appreciated in other movies that go that route, as the precious few number that exist. And so there was a wonderful potential for that, also potential to touch on some meaningful topics, but so many style choices and omissions in the script kept me from connecting to this movie. As far as the cast goes, Ron, I don't know if you say Eldard or Eldard, anyway, he's the lead. Joe Steadman. I've seen him, I think in some, when he was much younger, maybe as a guest, kind of playing a guest role in one or two movies. I've seen him in some TV shows. Most recently, I saw him on Justified, and I really enjoyed his performance in this movie, and I enjoy his performance when I see him in other things. He plays anxious and downtrodden so well. He tends to play these kind of like pathetic characters who are sometimes doing bad things, but at the same time, you just kind of sense, man, they are just a broken mess of a human being, and so you feel, at least I do, compassion passion for the types of characters that he plays, and he was certainly bringing back those kinds of vibes to this role. I love that he's not this great chiseled physical specimen. He's the guy that ultimately through the course of the movie is gaining these superpowers, and he's a normal looking guy with a little extra weight. So I just appreciated the casting choice in terms of his type, and then also just him as a performer. I enjoyed. I would have liked more of him and less of almost everyone else. It's not that we had like some bad acting in this that just made me cringe or anything like that, but it just kind of was like, I felt like placeholder. Here's the villain, here's the boyfriend, here's the daughter. The villain is mostly obscured, a little like Inspector Gadget's nemesis, or like some kind of classic Bond villain. I don't really know Bond movies, I'm just kind of guessing, who spends the whole movie kind of sitting at a computer screen. The rest of the cast felt to me like a typical casting call for small one-shot roles in a TV show. These beautiful people who may be tomorrow's leading men and women, but I would have preferred character actors in all these supporting roles, or performances with more complexity. Some of that's on, the time that was allowed, and maybe on the directing and stuff, but I'm guessing some of it was on the casting too. I just wish that the supporting cast performances that we got in the end would have been stronger. They largely felt like simple character slots that were being filled to kind of structure the plot on. They did not feel to me like real, interesting, properly motivated people themselves. As far as the stunts and visuals, as visuals go, this movie's purple. It is a purple movie. Purple everywhere, or at least purple tinting when purple isn't present in almost every circumstance. And that was from the very start. It became intrusive to me very quickly. And at some point I was like, I can't not see the purple. Every time it shows up, it's all over the place. So a little too much there for me. The editing and visual style in general really stand out, but I didn't feel like they added to my emotional investment in any way. In one instance, well, at least two instances, makeup and hair felt off to me. I don't usually comment on this. I just noticed it in this movie. And I think this kinds of thing happens. I start getting nitpicky, I think, as we all do, not because a movie is really worth kind of beating into the ground or whatever, but when the things that we care about in a fiction experience, when we're not getting those itches scratched, then our mind starts wandering. We start noticing the other things that we don't really like, and so it's easy to kind of pile on. But I'll mention this stuff anyway. So there was a scene with a cancer patient who was in bed near death. Her hair and her eyebrows were gone, but her eyelashes looked like they'd just been made up, and she looked like she just had lipstick on and maybe like some foundation and maybe a touch of blush or something. She just looked too good in this scene where we're supposed to see her death on the near horizon. This is supposed to be this kind of intense emotional moment, and she just looked a little too put together. Likewise, the scientist boyfriend of Joe's daughter, who is very young, doesn't give off an intellectual vibe to me at all in this movie, and he's also looks too athletic and muscular, kind of to feel right in that role. I'm not saying that scientists can't be athletic and muscular. I'm just saying in fiction, that's kind of not what we would expect, and so I would expect there to be a reason for him in a movie to be, unusually, athletic looking. And I think that in this movie, if they wanted to cast him, fine, but I think that could have been de-emphasized with different wardrobe choices. Visual effects were cool and purple, and the movie goes to some spectacular places near the end, and similar to a movie like Ultraviolet with Mila Jovovich, if you've seen that one, the overall stylization of the movie does help to distract from the lower visual effects budget that I assume they had. The filmmaker really seemed to make the best of what he had in the realm of visuals in this movie, and given that this movie is his first as director, with a long career before this doing visual effects, it makes sense that he would do well with the visuals despite a presumably lower budget. And of course it also makes sense that the storytelling wouldn't be the strong point of a movie like this for someone that this is their first, this is their directorial debut after spending a lot of time just working on visuals. I don't always comment on the music or the sound of a movie. I want to comment on the music here. The electronic industrial score of this flick would normally be a big plus for me. I really like that style of music, but here it didn't have enough variation for me, I don't think, and it kept kind of like a driving beat in moments that I would have liked something non-rhythmic and quiet, something that would bring out the drama or the a different mood, for this scene. And I think they did that a little, but I just really felt like they kept the music kind of driving and a beat constantly going when it could have settled down, or when they could have done something out of tempo, instead of keeping this same kind of driving beat. And I think that the music in this movie was a significant reason that I didn't connect as well as I could have with some of the brief emotional scenes. All right. Now, if, let's see. Oh, yeah. Relevance. Is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in this experience that might stimulate worthwhile thought or conversation? Well, as I mentioned, this movie repeatedly seems to set up thematic issues related to God that it never really does anything with. The mad scientist, if you will, in his perceived absence of God, because he doesn't believe in God either, basically wants to create a God in order to save humanity from this coming disaster. But he does so through these horribly cruel acts upon other people. So maybe in his mind he's being benevolent, but it's like, oh man, it's so, you could look at that and say, okay, well, is there like an ends justify the means type of thing going on here? Or is there a statement being made when all is said and done that the ends do not justify the means? Well, I don't think the movie commits actually to one or the other. I was really kind of expecting it to, but it didn't, I don't think. It never validates belief in God, instead having a focus on human potential, if anything, and yet the villain represents this atheistic ends justify the means attitude. So where this movie is at philosophically when it comes to the questions it raises about God, it really is kind of a mystery to me. I feel like it just doesn't answer those questions, despite the time it spends kind of setting up those topics. So if you're in a mood for like, a kind of like, what do you think the filmmaker was saying kind of conversation, this one might suit you, but I mean, good luck trying to build an argument that he was saying anything specific in the areas that he spends most of his time setting up thematically. All right, well, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Vader, okay, don't pay money for this, but keep an eye out for it to appear on maybe like a service you already pay for, like Amazon Prime, or some kind of free movie website like Tubi TV. It has enough ambition and ideas and style in the visuals to be something that you can watch in your peripheral and kind of get something from, maybe while you're just blasting rocks in No Man's Sky, but it's not the kind of the indie marvel that you'd hoped for, and it isn't worth your full attention for its roughly 90-minute runtime. It's rated R for violence and language. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please do like, share, subscribe, click that bell so you don't miss the next video I put out. We've launched a Patreon for Christian Geek Central. Go check out patreon.com/spiritblade productions for info on the rewards you can get for supporting this work as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. ChristianGeekCentral.com